Welcome to Pontification Nation. I'm your host, Ricky Skittle, coming to you live, as always, from my mother's basement. And welcome back, folks. I know I took a few days off there. It's been a troubling few days in the news world. There's so much going on that's extremely challenging to explain. And I've been kind of thinking about all this stuff and trying to figure out the best way to cover it and make sure that I can actually speak about it in a way that you guys understand it. So I've been struggling with that a little bit over the past few days, and I've got about 10 videos I want to do, but I'm also trying to figure out the best way to do them to A, help you understand exactly what's going on here, and B, make it believable, because frankly, some of the stuff that is going on is so unbelievable that I can't figure out a way to make it believable because there just isn't enough reported data for me to show you what I think and why I think that way, because it's all being covered up. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go through this thread by Brian Cates at the Epoch Times. The Epoch Times is a conservative outlet. If you're familiar with Jeff Carlson from The Market's Work, he is now a writer there. He's also a CFA. He does a lot of good work on finance and stuff like that. But then also he's been on top of Spygate, and their sources at the Epoch Times are very, very close to the inside of this investigation. So let's just kind of start from here. I know that we are all getting to a point in this country where we're seeing what's going on a daily basis and saying, how in the heck is this stuff going on a daily basis? It doesn't make any sense that we're seeing all of this and nothing is happening, right? It's so difficult to believe that all this stuff has gone on. I mean, it's very clear at this point that there was no Russia collusion with Trump. And actually, it looks more like Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama committed treason. You know, when you look at everything that's going on, I'll tell you this. Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, Jim Comey, Andy McCabe, Jim Baker, Bill Priestap, all these guys, all these people were not acting alone in a silo inside of the Justice Department without Loretta Lynch and Barack Obama being fully read in. This stuff is going deeper and farther than anyone truly understands, including myself. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through this thread that Brian Cates from the Epoch Times did. And we're going to talk a little bit about what he's saying. And I think he puts a pretty good, it's pretty easy to understand, but it's also going to show you a little bit. I'll talk about it through the thread, so make sure you listen to the end. But it's going to show you how difficult this is to really put in writing or in speech or in a video, because it's so freaking complex. And there's so much that we still don't know and probably can't know and probably won't know. So without further ado, from Brian Cates on Twitter, you should actually follow him. He's pretty good. So I'm still laughing my ass off at those who think the entire plot was exposed, aired out in public for the last year and a half, so that, can you believe this? I mean, really? They can let all the plotters walk away. My God, some people are dumb. So we've got a lot of people in this world who say, I know Hillary Clinton's a criminal, but nothing's going to happen to her because nothing ever has. And I'll believe it when I see it. I can't tell you how many times I've heard the words, I'll believe it when I see it, right? And I'm trying to help people in my life understand what's truly going on here. And most people are either disinterested because they've heard me yammer on about it for so long. They don't believe that anything. I feel like Chicken Little sometimes, because everything I say, it's taking a very, very long time to actually be seen as true. So this is kind of, I call this the I'll believe it when I see it syndrome. So let's continue. Remember what I told you earlier. I wrote columns about it. The Trump administration strategy on the Spygate investigations, prosecutions, indictments is not to comment or even acknowledge their existence until they are ready. So you must understand that this is so deep and so far, it stretches all over the globe. This is not something that is just going on in this country. It's going on all over the world. The CIA is involved in this. Okay, the John Brennan CIA. There are operations that are continuing to this day where John Brennan is the person they report to, right? So basically, you got to think about it like this. You're a CIA operative, and the head of the CIA comes to you and says, I have something that's so deep and so covert. The only person that you can talk to is me. No matter what happens, even if I'm not the director anymore, you're so deep and so covert, no one is going to know about you, and I am the only person you take orders from. So think about it like that as far as the CIA is concerned, and why, oh, well, Ricky, John Brennan hasn't been at the CIA for 2 years. John Brennan has operatives working to try to cover up all of the malfeasance that went on during the Obama years, and we're about to get into how deep it is. So, in this article here, if you want to look at, I'll leave this thread in the description, so if you want to go here and read these articles, you can. I've already read them, but in any case, that's why the thing is happening. The investigation is being run by Huber, because the DC leak culture, they couldn't run this investigation out of DC. It just isn't possible. There's too many reporters, there's too many politicians, there's too much stuff going on. So it's being run out of Salt Lake City, Utah, where Trump won, because you got to remember the grand jury. Do you want a grand jury that's looking into this that went 90-10 for Clinton? Or do you want a grand jury that's looking into this that had a safe majority for Trump out in Utah? So think about it like that. Now read this letter from Reps Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows, in which they demand new AG William Barr give them an update on the criminal referral they made to the DOJ about Andrew McCabe more than a year ago. So here you have this letter, and I'll link this in. Well, it's in the thread, so you'll see it. But it's basically them saying as soon as they have a chance after he gets in and his feet wet and starts realizing how awful the situation that he just came into is. So he starts saying, we write to request an update on Justice Department's investigation and prosecution of FBI Deputy Director Andy McCabe. So this goes on to talk about how they made a referral, because Andy McCabe's a liar and he did all these things that he shouldn't have done. So here he says, nowhere in their letter do the two House reps even mention or acknowledge the fact that there's already a grand jury investigation of McCabe being led by U.S. attorneys. The existence of that grand jury was revealed in a leak last September 6th. So here again, another article that I'm sure Brian wrote. While members of Bob Mueller's team have engaged in frequent media leaks, a group of prosecutors has been quietly investigating corruption. Now, you have to remember, the media will always tell you that Bob Mueller has no leaks. They will tell you that. But that's just simply not the case, because there's tons of stuff that comes out of the special counsel investigation. Clearly, Andrew Weissman, who has now been removed, right? They're telling you the special counsel investigation is winding down, and they're removing some of the most corrupt, disgusting people from the investigation. Now, I don't know if the investigation's winding down or not, but what I do know is they're keeping Rod Rosenstein around. Right? He was supposed to be gone by now, but they're keeping him around because they want him there to answer the questions, because he ran the investigation. So when questions arise about why this corrupt investigation was allowed to be so corrupt, it's going to be Rod Rosenstein answering those questions, not, the good guys. And while I still believe that Rod Rosenstein is acting at the direction of Trump to be a bad guy, I believe that he's doing it to save his own life and the lives of his family, because he would probably be destroyed in reality. He continues, note they don't ask for any update on grand jury investigation into McCabe that had been meeting for months by the time it was revealed last September. Now let me ask you something. Does a grand jury need to meet for months on end to figure out if Andy McCabe lied? because it's already in plain sight. It's written. He lied. He lied 3 times under oath and a fourth not under oath, and he got fired from the department or from the FBI for lying. It's as simple as that. Does the grand jury need 10 months, a year and a half to figure out if Andy McCabe lied? Absolutely not. There's other things going on here. If these guys are playing the role of being clueless, they're doing a really great job of it. And now, this is how complicated and silly this whole thing is. He says this is the end of his thread. And then just a few more minutes later, look at the opinion polls on Spygate. The ground has been prepared. The majority of those polled now understand what happened. A year and a half ago, was that true? Of course not. The constant drip, drip, drip rollout of the plot, carefully managed, has done its work. So what's been going on since October of 2017? It is my belief that Trump, in November of 2016, Trump got his first true look at what was going on when Admiral Rogers, which we talked about in the Muellergate video, so if you aren't following me here, go back on my page, go to the Muellergate storyline, which I have as a playlist, and watch those videos. But I've talked about it in the Muellergate videos. Rogers came to in November of 16 to the Trump Tower after a skiff was put in there, and then everybody left the Trump Tower, the whole transition, everyone, and went to Bedminster to the golf club, because he started to get a taste of what actually happened in the 2016 election at that point in time, and he realized that he was being spied on, which is why he said in March of 2017, Obama had my wires tapped. He didn't just say that. It's the truth. He did have his wires tapped. He may not have used the right terminology or phraseology for the media, but he did. Obama was spying not only on the Trump campaign, but the Trump transition, and then on the Trump presidency. How does that happen? Now imagine if Trump, when he got that piece of information in November of 2016, came in January 20th, 2017, and started all these indictments and trying to prosecute these people. What would have happened? Well, the first thing that would have happened is the American people would have said, oh my goodness, this guy is so thin-skinned. I can't believe we just elected him. You know, he's just going after his political opponents. This is a political hit job, right? That's what would have happened, because no one truly understood anything about what happened, because the only thing we knew about at that point was the PP dossier, which is all PP, but we didn't know that at the time. You know, most normal people who look at it say, this is probably not true, most of this stuff, but who knows about some of this stuff? Whoa, you know, like, I'm assuming that, you know, Trump, who is a total germaphobe, isn't going to get peed on by hookers in Russia, but who's this Carter Page guy? Who are these other people? What is going on? Did Michael Cohen go to Prague? What, you know, there's a lot of stuff in there that's unverified in the media, because none of the media would run with this garbage because they knew it was garbage, right? So, if Trump launched major prosecutions in 2017 without public support and tried to explain after the fact, how well do you think that would have worked? Especially with the media against him the way it is. Even in mid-2018, the ground wasn't ready yet. It is now, right? Because now people have finally understood, after 2 years, or really 3 years, and who knows how much longer, probably more like 10, of spying and no evidence of the things that they accused him of. They're starting to realize, oh my goodness, maybe President Trump isn't a bad guy. Maybe the people who are doing this to him are the bad guys. Many commentators never had any real faith in Trump to begin with, and are now spinning tales about how he's stupidly been fooled again by appointing Barr, etc., Argle, barf. So what he's saying here is basically, because Barr is buddies with Mueller, you know, and Barr is an old kind of guard guy from the Bush administration, that Barr is really just coming in to run more cleanup on the whole operation, and nothing's actually ever going to happen, because I'll believe it when I see it, right? But here's the thing you got to realize about Barr. Bill Barr has been watching what's been going on at the Justice Department for the last 10 years in disgust. Bill Barr has no political ambition or aspiration. Bill Barr does not give a hoot what anyone says about him in the media. Bill Barr is the perfect man for the job, because when he's done, he's going to be able to walk away and know that his legacy is a great legacy. And then he's going to be able to spend time with his grandkids because he's built a great life for himself. He doesn't need this. He wants to do this because he wants to do what's right, and he's been watching what's been going on. And let me just be sure that when Bill Barr got in, he is just flabbergasted at what's been going on in the Department of Justice. Flabbergasted. Yeah, you just got done watching Trump epically. This is something that is very near and dear to my heart, and which I talked about in one of my first videos, Build a Wall or Crime Will Fall. It's tough to listen to because I didn't have good sound equipment at that point, but I talked about how Trump the whole time has known that he's going to get the wall funding out of the military budget, right? He inflated the military budget on purpose earlier. You got the 2 years of seven. Why do you think Trump always talks about 700 billion with a B for the military? Because he knew he was never going to truly get wall funding from these people. So they inflated the budget to put things in there. If you notice, I think even just today, it came out that Trump's using a bunch of money from places that weren't, from projects that weren't started. Why do you think the projects from 2 years ago haven't been started yet that were fully funded and appropriated? Because they were never meant to be started. Trump knew he wasn't going to get, well, he didn't know. Trump thought he wasn't going to get the wall funding the right way from Congress, the way that it should have been done. So in preparation for that battle, he laid down this and put the money in the military budget so that then he could use his national emergency powers. Trump doesn't just, he seems like he's irrational and flies off the handle. Every tweet has, well, not every tweet, but most tweets have a meaning. The meaning you see and then the separate meaning. So he is totally, this is right, what Brian Cates is saying, what we're about to say. You just got done watching Trump, especially troll D.C. Oh, that's the District of Columbia, and really the deep state and all these jerks that we elect year after year to represent us, that don't represent us. D.C., over the wall funding. He knew all along he was going to get money from the DOD as CINC, I'm not sure what this is, and Congress couldn't do jack to stop him. And how many months did it take him to set that up? It took him almost 2 years because he had to get the 17 and the 18 budget done. You got to read the art of the deal. You have to understand how Trump does things. It's all strategy based. He's a chess player. He truly is a chess player. Some people say he was one of the best chess players in the world, and that he worked with, what's the other guy's name? Who's the chess player, the famous one? Bobby Fischer. There's people out there who say they played chess with Bobby Fischer, and when he finally beat Bobby Fischer, he quit playing. Now, I haven't been able to independently verify that. I've read it, but I haven't been able to verify it anywhere else. So who knows what the truth is about that, but I've read that. Now, what we call Spygate, this is important. What we call Spygate is more massive and far-reaching than most of you know. I've tried to explain the actual scope of this several times, then I gave up and decided to just let it happen. Uranium One, Russia moles, massive bribery scandals, illegal spying on Congress. Barack Obama, he spied on the press. He spied on Congress. He spied on political opponents. I am 100% convinced that he spied on Mitt Romney. I'm 100% convinced that this thing that happened with Donald Trump was not a single thing. This is not an isolated incident, if you will. This is massive. Think about it. There's already, that we know of, at least 5 countries involved. At least. And probably many more. Entire CIA networks are being rolled up. Massive exposure of top classified intelligence, including special access programs. Most people have no idea this goes far beyond just spying on the Trump campaign during the 2016 election. I am working on this right now, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to do a video on it or not. because it sounds crazy. But maybe after going through this, I can do the video because you guys might believe me. But this thing that happened in New Zealand, this is not some random guy that is just all of a sudden deciding to shoot all these people in a mosque. This has CIA written all over it. It does. And it's also very curious that just a month prior, on February 22nd, and you can look this up, there was a invasion. There was I guess I don't know what you would call it, an operation on the North Korean embassy in Spain. And this operation looked very similar to what happened in New Zealand. I mean, on a little bit of a smaller scale because of the amount of people involved, but, and no one said boo about it. No one said boo about it. What I believe, when you look at those two things separately and then look at them together, that they are probably most likely perpetrated by either the same people or people who are working together. So when he's saying entire CIA networks are being rolled up, massive exposure of top classified intelligence, including special access programs, this is true. All this stuff that's going on that we're sitting here saying, how is this happening? I don't even get it. Like, I've never seen the world like this before. It's because there is a civil war going on deep within our government. And the good guys are winning. And that's why we see all of this irrational lashing out. That's why we see all the Democrats trying to change the rules about how we vote, which I'm going to do a video on. People who keep screaming, well, hurry up already. They have no idea the real scope and how far-reaching this is. This had to be carefully managed to avoid societal collapse. I am not joking. He is not speaking in hyperbole here. If everything came out at once, first of all, no one would believe it because it would be impossible to believe. There would be a very small percentage of the population, like me and maybe 100 other people, who would actually believe the scope of this. And I joke when I'm being hyperbolic when I say 100. There's more than 100 people who believe what I believe and know what I know. But when he says avoid societal collapse, he's serious, very serious. Because if we knew the extent, I mean, that's why I say we probably won't ever actually know the extent of what happened and what was happening. Because it was a plot to destroy America as we know it and bring in socialism. That's what it is. America can't exist as a free country and the bastion of liberty, justice, and freedom that it is, and the people who control the world, the people who control the world and America as a bastion of liberty, justice, and freedom can't exist at the same time. The people who control the world are trying to destroy this country as it is. And that's what you see playing out in front of you on a daily basis right now in these Democratic primaries. I should say Democrat primaries. I misspoke. There's nothing democratic about the Democrat Party. And don't ever call them Democratic because they aren't Democratic. They're communists. I had to pause there. I didn't want to swear. When you begin rolling all this out, the ground has to be ready or there will be massive upheaval. The extent and depth of the corruption is staggering. Trump had to solidify control of federal agencies chock full of spies and saboteurs. That was literally all of 2017 and part of 2018. And I would posit that if you look at the amount of ex, and I'm using air quotes when I say ex-CIA officials that ran for Congress and that are now in Congress, it is unfathomable for me to believe that these aren't active agents on an operation. It just doesn't happen. 50, 60, 70 CIA agents running for Congress. When's the last time that ever happened? It didn't. It never did until last year. Because they're being overt now. Because they are panicking. There is panic in the District of Columbia. Major panic. And there's panic all over the world. That's why, what do you think when Trump said, he probably didn't even want to really declassify the documents. He knew there would be pushback. But he he ordered the Justice Department to declassify all the documents, and then he came out and said, well, a couple of countries called me, they don't want me declassifying the documents, blah, blah, blah. Why would those countries, first of all, how do they even know what's in those documents? Because those documents are from a secret FISA court that nobody knows about except for the people who went in there that day. How do the people from other countries know what's going on in our FISA court and we don't? Let that sink in for a sec. The extent and depth of the corruption is staggering. Trump had to solidify control of federal agencies chock full of spies and saboteurs. Trust me, a lot of these people are working for John Brennan. He worked directly with Obama to put them all throughout the government, throughout the entire time, so that they could spy on the patriots and the good people. When this gets rolled out, Democrats, DNC media, Never Trump, etc., are going to realize that it's really being done. And they're serious about not just airing all this stuff out, but also about prosecuting the people that did it. They are going to try to literally start a civil war, which is really what's been happening. I mean, what's been going on in this country over the past 2 years are people laying the foundations and the groundwork for civil war. Because the Civil War is literally going on, and I'm not speaking in hyperbole or AOC language, it's literally going on inside the government, but they're going to try to start one outside the government. So people who say Trump and his team should have pulled the trigger on this back in 2017 were always clueless. I would posit they weren't always clueless. They might have been in on it. They didn't understand the extent of this and that the country itself hangs in the balance if this is mishandled. And that is true. The country itself does hang in the balance. So the perps are not going to be allowed to walk away scot-free after all. After all they were doing has been fully exposed to the public. The public exposure had to come first and had to be accepted by most of the public before taking the next step. Now we know that the 20% of the lunatics that live in this country are not going to accept this no matter what happens, right? But you got to get over that 50% mark. And you got to realize that polling is a little fuzzy, right? Because they usually are trying to get a narrative out there through a poll. So when you get over 50, you're probably more like at 68 to 74% when you're talking about Trump and anything Trump. Because they rig the polls so that it doesn't get to 50. And the people who can't see that or accept that have more problems than I can help them with. Trump knows what he's doing. End thread. And here again, he ends. So this is the second time he's ended the thread, but continues on. Because this is so large and complex that every time you end up finishing something, you realize you forgot something. And I'm realizing this a lot as I do these videos when I listen back. Oh, I forgot to say this. I forgot to say that. There's so much more because it's just crazy. Addendum. Forgot a point I was going to make. In 2017, we had Antifa holding major riots in many large cities. Remember that? Now, thanks to Sessions and others, they were dispersed and now only cause problems in the deepest blue places like Portland, Oregon. Now, I'm going to do something, and I don't even know if the information that I want is actually out there to do this, but I'm going to look at something because when you look at like the Electoral College and voting and the way things are going, and we're going to do a video on this, but when you think about it and you look at the way that people were dispersed, when I saw dispersed, this came into my mind. I want to just say it here at the end of this video, but when you look at how undocumented or illegal aliens, however you would like to call it, are dispersed through the country. What is the reasoning and how were they dispersed? You know, you've got a lot of people going into these Midwest states, into small towns, the Rust Belt states into small towns. I mean, was it a plan to disperse all these people out and then during Hillary Clinton's presidency, just give blanket amnesty? And then once you have all those people in blanket amnesty and you disperse them out amongst the red states, then you have complete control over the electoral map. Is that possible? I don't know. I'm going to try to figure it out. I don't know if I'll be able to, but I'm going to try for you. Thanks for listening, liking, subscribing, sharing amongst your friends and family and your social media. For Pontification Nation, this is Ricky Skittle, and I am out.